What up, what up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burbs. Cheer. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ben Busy from the Burbs, broadcasting to you from Osaka, Japan. I'm joined by my co-host, XJ.
Yo,
What up?
what's going on, man?
What up? How's it going, bro?
You know.
So, we just finished, recording, right? And it turned out that I hadn't set it up correctly or whatever.
Right.
So, we just basically lost,
7 minutes.
It was more than that. Let's tell the audience. It was, close to a half hour. So, our
Was it?
usual
Wow, time
hour-long
flies.
show will only be, 20 minutes at this point.
Well, I think we should just cut right into it. We were just talking about Audible and the value of books on tape and, the mechanical process of reading. We can rehash that after.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to rather talk about the topic at hand. The book that I was reading is a book on toxic parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the main avenue and description of toxic parenting are parents who make everything about them.
Okay.
But they do it under the auspices that they're doing it for your own good.
I see.
I'm sure you can think of examples.
Yeah,
of
no,
that
absolutely.
happening
Like
right
theater
away.
moms. Theater moms are like the worst example, maybe.
Right.
I mean, they're in the pantheon of terrible parents, definitely.
Or fathers who shame their daughters for being slutty, for having interest in boys.
Slut
When
shamers,
it's
yeah.
right, where it's really about their fathers, and it's about the father's inability to handle a sexual attraction to his daughter, so he shames her for it.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
heavy. It's heavy, fucked up shit, man.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The first thought that I had is that because it gets into spanking and whether or not spanking is moral, if it's helpful. And I got in a debate with somebody about that this morning after having, listened to maybe 2 or 3 hours of this book.
Mm-hmm.
And they normalized spanking and they said, it's not that bad. But I get the impression that everybody wants to apologize for whatever their parents did and minimize it because that would be to diminish their own outcome and to negate some part of themselves.
Right, yeah. You do get that often with people playing devil's advocate or
Stockholm.
Nuremberg defense or something.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome,
yeah.
right? But so let me ask you this. If spanking is effective, then why does everybody think our society is so fucked up? They're like, it's worked for thousands of years, but all they do is bitch about how everything is.
Right. Yeah, it's because it's not. Because that as a mode of discipline or whatever as an option is just, it doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Right.
What really works, what really results in well-adjusted, responsible, law-abiding adults is not somebody beating them as a kid. They might say that, but like you said, they're just kind of trying to somehow justify the violence in order to positively reinterpret a relationship with their parents, which would otherwise just be categorized as kind of abusive and very negative. Like they have the Stockholm syndrome, like you said.
I think the most negative thing a parent can say to a kid is, "You're making me do this to you."
Right, or "This is for your own good."
Right.
Right.
Well, the reality, I think, is that the parent is spanking because they're fucking lazy. They're too lazy to make the moral argument, to teach their kids reason, to, what I mean, do as I say, not as I do, and these inconsistent draconian punishments. And I was actually reading earlier, I need to get my sources together. Like when we do the second part of this, I will definitely have stuff with sources lined up.
Yeah.
But I was reading that children who are spanked, especially heavily spanked, are far more likely to be violent people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What a shocker.
Yeah, no, surprising no one.
Surprising no one.
It just doesn't serve, like you said, they're lazy, right?
Well, they banned, I think they banned or limited spanking in most of Scandinavia, and since they did that, their crime rates have dropped dramatically.
Who would have thought?
And I think that's the case in Germany now as well, because the person that I was arguing with is a military wife on a U.S. base in Germany. And I assume that that's like what she bumped into.
Well, typically you're going to get a lot of that in general
in military families, I would think. I mean, I don't have the statistics to prove that, but from my own firsthand experience, talking with military families and just kind of getting a sense, the good ones I know, I wouldn't do that. I know some of the hardest motherfuckers that you could fucking that you would ever meet, like the most hardcore gunnery sergeant in the fucking Marine Corps, like drill instructor, all that. And
he's probably a sweetheart outside that, right?
He would be the first to be like, I would never fucking hit my kid, ever. It would just never happen. And it seems like once these parents get to the point where they're striking their children or whatever, they're already so far beyond the pale. Like, they lost the battle like years ago. You know what I mean? Like, and the question I have is, what do you say to a parent whose only method that they seem to be able to use that seems to be effective is hitting? How do you get them? Is there any way to walk back that trauma, to walk back that violence that the child has experienced in the parent? Because the parent doesn't want to hit their kid either. That's what's so fucked up, is like,
well,
most of them. Most of them. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Yeah. I would say the parents that are hitting their kids are doing it because they feel like they've exhausted all other options. And it's like they have it in their head where this is even a viable option, which is wrong in and of itself. So you see that the problem is generational. Like, this is something stretching back for generations. What do you do? What do you prescribe for people to be able to walk back this kind of abuse back towards, using reason, using the scientific method or philosophy, or getting their children to, I don't know, take responsibility for things in a different way other than either, hitting them or in some cases screaming at them?
Right. Well, once it's done, it's done.
Once it's done, it's done.
Right. I think that you have to kind of just lay off, because it's really difficult to make a 9-year-old understand. I think maybe once they're 14 or something, you put them in intensive psychotherapy for self-esteem related stuff, because that's what happens. It undermines the trust between the parent and the child, and it creates a relationship of fear, which makes the child like not get any affection from their parents, which is a key point of socialization and creating boundaries that are healthy. Right. And that's why a lot of those girls end up becoming fucking hookers,
prostitutes.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But look at the criminal justice system. Like, you don't even need to do studies on children to realize how ineffective punishment is at altering people's behavior. I mean,
it's very ineffective. Yeah,
they flogged people for what, 8,000 years.
Right.
In World War II, they were shooting people who had PTSD. What?
Yeah. Yeah. This would happen. Not just World War II. This is World War One.
Yeah.
Like, we had been doing this. I mean, even to this day, to a degree, there are a great many number of parents who say, spoil the rod, or spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah, studies are showing that the exact opposite is true. A myriad of them. Like, I have an article on Psychology Today that attacks that exact phrase.
What about this is going to be a two-parter, and I just want to set people up for it. But what about, okay, we're dealing with one extreme. Then we have the other extreme, which is the coddlers, the helicopter parents who kind of, it's like a neuroses. Like, they obsess over their child's health and safety to the point where they impinge upon it.
I'm glad you said the other end of the spectrum, because it actually isn't. It's just a lateral thing.
It's a different part of the same spectrum.
It's still the parents making everything about them.
Right.
It's about them using their child to ease their neuroticism. They make it so their children are dependent and needy, and
like, here you get the Munchausen's affected youth and these kind of disorders, right?
How many of the most beaten children do you think actually already suffered from mental issues like Asperger's?
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
And kids with ADHD.
And the parents just didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, they're just like, you're fucking stupid, boy.
Yeah, they're just ignorant, and they just end up like basically giving birth to the next Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, or like potentiating the next Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
I wonder, in now I don't want to. This is going to be a little bit of a blanket statement, but corporal punishment within sects of religious people, like you find that child abuse happens more often than not, or child abuse. Do you think this happens more often than not in religious or non-religious households, and why?
Oh, it's got to be religious.
It is, right? It's almost
It's
invariably.
Right.
And it's not just Christians. This is also in Islam, and I would think in Orthodox Judaism.
Even Hinduism. I mean, Gandhi beat his wife.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Nonviolence.
Right.
The hypocrisy is amazing.
The hypocrisy runs deep. We have a theme on this podcast, or in our discussions, where it's true. Like the notion of the beatified historical character, it's a falsehood that serves no one, and it needs to be shattered, like at every possible turn. My own legend, I would destroy my own legend, and expose my own faults.
See, I want to introduce a term here because it keeps coming up, and I just invented this term off the top of my head. But I'm going to call it cognitive discontinuity.
Cognitive discontinuity, yeah, it's this like
which is inconsistencies in people's belief system and thought process.
Yeah, where they'll believe one thing, like for example, your hardcore extremist Christian might believe in, again, they might be against abortion, but they're for corporal punishment.
Or I think the better example is that Jesus taught charity, and yet they're like, fuck the poor people, like at every option they get, and they support everything that fucks poor people, right?
Right.
And it's just not Christ-like. But
cognitive discontinuity.
Cognitive discontinuity, I think, is the best. I mean, it's a little bit cumbersome to say, but I think it best describes
it. Yeah, the phenomena. Yeah. People are so complex. It amazes me that someone can compartmentalize their identity in such a way that these two diametrically opposed concepts could be held together at once in one person.
Well, it's because, so you know how submarines release debris to try to explode torpedoes that are shot at them?
Did you say Marines?
No, submarines.
Submarines. Oh, yeah.
They like release debris to like try to blow up torpedoes that are headed towards them.
Yeah.
I think that people emotionally do that by creating a false self. So if you create a false self as a response to trauma, then it's sort of almost like, I don't know, what's the word? An effigy or... it's like you're creating this dummy version of you, a decoy. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a decoy. You're creating a decoy self so that the criticism and the punishment can never touch your real self. And I think that people are easily able to compartmentalize is because the false self is the predictable response to trauma. Because what happens is that the second you have trauma, you stop developing in a certain way, and you leave a part of you behind. And that's why, Joe Rogan was talking about, like, he was scared when he became an adult because he's like, oh my God, nobody's really in control. And I've definitely had that thought myself.
Right, yeah.
As like my greatest disappointment as an adult is to realize that the adults are more childish than the children.
It's frightening to have that realization too, isn't it? It's very scary. Because
the older people get, the more entitled they are based on seniority.
Right. Which itself is bullshit.
Yeah, old people act like they fucking own this rock.
Yeah, they do. Like, I can understand showing respect to a certain degree, respect for your elders and so on and so forth. But, I mean, when you really sit down and think about it, look how fucked up everything is. They haven't fixed it. There are some... And this goes to say that there are a lot of people, baby boomers included, who've done a lot to try to make the world a better place. That doesn't say that it's carte blanche, like, okay, they're all fucked up. I'm not going to make a hasty generalization like that.
But here's the thing, though. People are like, the old way, my old school way is the best way. And I'm like, well, then why is the next generation so screwed up? Why is everything so fucked if your way is the right way? You're like, everything's going to shit. I'm like, it went to shit under your stewardship, you fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the main reason why people are upset and frustrated with the baby boomer generation, because they had it better than their parents and their children, and everything's still fucked up, and it's still becoming more and more fucked up. And when I hear people talk about, oh, we need to elect Trump, we need to elect Hillary, we need to elect Bernie, I look at their ages. Hillary is what, 69 or 68? Trump is 69. Bernie is 73. Like, none of these people I would trust. None of these people, unless they hold on to the belief that using science and technology, they might be able to extend their lives indefinitely. I don't want anyone who doesn't think that they are going to live forever really to be president of the United States. Like, I don't want a personality like that, because subconsciously, if someone accepts the fact that, yes, biologically we can ameliorate these diseases that comprise what we know as aging or whatever and fix the biological animal, then that gives them hope for the future. They won't act out in a way that is kind of thanatonic. You know what I mean? Like, they will be operating in such a way where they know that tomorrow is going to come. Yes, there are issues, but we can defeat them. And there's no, like, what do you call it? Like, because they know that they're going to die soon, they don't really give a fuck. There's a lot of danger inherent in someone like that.
Well, I mean, plus the fact that they all self-identify as Christian overwhelmingly.
Yeah, and Christianity is itself...
They're like, Jesus is coming, fuck this rock.
Exactly.
He's going to blow it up anyway.
That's what's scary, right? I mean, everyone except Bernie, like, I would think. But I think...
probably Trump, too, honestly.
I think, honestly, even Hillary, I really don't think you get to that level. It's all lip service, just to get the votes, Oh, yeah, I believe in Jesus. No, you fucking don't. You're just saying that shit.
Penn Jillette goes on a lot of rants against people, like, acting like they have, like, some secret deal with Obama, like they know him personally, saying that, oh, he just said that to get elected, like they know him.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, that's disingenuous.
Yeah, it's like, where's your evidence to back that up?
Right, so I don't, but I look at the way these people act.
They're politicians.
And it doesn't seem Christ-like, but then again, when I look at the average Christian and how they behave and what their beliefs are versus the scripture, there's just as much of a disconnect. So, I don't know.
It's kind of sad to a degree when fucking the Westboro Baptist Church is protesting, whatever, any given church or whatever. And they are making more sense, technically, like in that one instance. They are connected more faithfully to the message of Jesus than the church is at that time. Like,
I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction here that might be wild.
What?
I think Catholicism is going to overtake Protestantism in spite of the molestation scandals.
Because the
shit that the Pope is saying
right.
makes more sense to this world than the fundamentalist Christian evangelical Protestant view.
Right, because
they're
right.
The papacy has finally said, all right, we get it. Like, at least they're like they're special pleading for man on the evolution thing, but that's like way more concession than you're ever gonna get from Pat Robertson.
Oh yeah, no way. Yeah, Pat Robertson, their young Earth creationists, like hardcore, like Ken Ham, like Earth is only 6,000 years old. Human beings walked around with dinosaurs, like they are all about it.
Walked around with dinosaurs.
That's the young Earth creationism.
I thought it was Satan put the bones there to.
Oh, there's that too. So
which is it?
Right, exactly. You need to ask one. I would like to have one on. I'm willing to. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm not here to make anyone feel bad about their beliefs. I'm here to respect all beliefs. But it's like, come on, like I really would like to have some. There's got to be reason there. You know what I mean?
I think we need to reach out to an intellectual apologist.
Yeah.
For creationism.
Right. If we could get in contact with Saint Michael, that would be ideal, at least for the Catholic side. And then for the Protestant side.
Honestly, the person I would most like to debate this with is William Lane Craig. Because he is by far the most well-spoken theist I've ever seen.
Wait a minute, who is that?
He's a guy who he's a legitimate philosopher, like he really knows his shit. He actually beat Chris Hitchens in a debate for my money, but he shouldn't have. But Chris Hitchens didn't know shit about philosophy, so he allowed he allowed William and Craig to get away with the cosmological argument and the fine-tuning argument and the watchmaker argument.
I see a Dawkins versus William Lane Craig debate.
Right.
Is that the one you're talking about? You're talking about
Hitchens. No. He debated Hitchens, and I felt like he beat Hitchens because he came out. He goes, "These are my 5 points." Right. He goes, "In order for Chris Hitchens to win this debate, he has to refute all 5 of my points and then erect his own edifice in its place."
He was able to just get around him with some like.
He used classical arguments, like a lot of them were Augustinian.
Right, but it amounts to sophistry when you're dealing with a bunch of people who don't know any better. Like, I mean, who do they debate in front of?
But Chris Hitchens debated for a living. Like, he should know the defeat for the ontological argument. Right, and, like, when William Lane Craig makes the ontological argument, it's on him to not talk past it.
What is the defeat for the ontological argument? You can't prove a negative or something?
All right, here's the ontological argument. The ontological argument says that, basically... things that exist in reality are better than things that just exist in thought.
Okay.
And God is a perfect thing. And for a perfect thing to exist only in thought means that a better version of it could exist and therefore can't be perfect. Therefore, God must exist because God existing in mind isn't as God is existing in reality. So therefore, God being perfect, God must exist. Now, the counter for that argument is, well, fucking unicorns in reality are better than unicorns in thought too, but that doesn't make them manifest into reality.
Right.
And like, there's Anselm's argument and all that, but like these arguments, like the fine tuning argument is silly. Because the main refutation to the fine tuning argument is if the universe was really fine tuned for life, then we would find way more Earth-like planets. The universe is actually overwhelmingly hostile towards life, and life exists in spite of that, even on Earth.
Yeah, like just
the conditions in which life.
But that's not entirely true because there is life pretty much everywhere in extremophiles. You have organisms that could potentially exist on the sun.
Right. Right. But that doesn't really help the fine-tuning argument's case either, does it?
No.
That the universe has to be in this exact right configuration for life to exist. If it was off by even 1/1,000,000,000th of a degree in any way, it wouldn't happen. Yeah. I was like, well, that's a non sequitur. Because you're assuming that the way that you see life now is the only way that life could arise. I mean, that's a massive assumption.
Yeah, it's quite a departure there.
Right, and we only recognize carbon-based life forms because that's what we are. So we don't know what to look for outside of that to identify it as life.
Right.
So there could be life on Mars that we just don't have the instrumentation to. That's the interesting thing too. Like, not to get off like on a tangent or anything, but with the mind-body thing, like hardcore materialists say that material, like the physical, is the only thing. But the main materialist argument against dualism is how can mental things and physical things interact if they're fundamentally different substances? But if that's the case, then how can they even know that material is the only thing? Because how can you detect non-material things through material instrumentation if you can't detect mind? If mind and body can't interact as separate substances, because there would be no way for the non-physical to act on the physical.
Right.
So that's a whole nother conversation.
It's a question, man. We raised a lot of questions. This is good intro.
Right. What do we got, like 7 minutes left?
And we got like 2 minutes left, bro.
Oh, holy shit. All right. To wrap it all up, I would say that I think that we really need to re-examine, because when we put criminals in jail, I think the conservative right-wing thought is that it's to punish them.
Right.
Well, really, it's just to stop them from fucking hurting society. It's putting them in a timeout. And remember how we were talking about the other day about how the majority of people who become, neo-Nazis or even subscribe to anarchy or join ISIS, etc., are under the age of like 23, or school shooters are under the age of 23. I think the reality is that if you give people like a long enough time out in jail, like beyond this period, like once they initially commit a crime, when they come out, odds are they're probably not going to have as high of a rate of recidivism.
No, because it'll be institutionalized at that point. Let's discuss this more in the next cast, and we have a lot to talk about. More with the parents, the toxic parents, and also with the prison industrial complex at large.
And how it reflects back on spanking as a model.
Right, exactly.
Because I think it's a good corollary.
Yeah, well, I mean, we pointed that out now. This is just the groundwork, so I hope this was educational for everyone. If you found it entertaining or educational, please click the PayPal link and donate. We are supported 100% by user-listener donations. If you like this, please donate and help us make more. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much, Zanish.
Goodbye.